Welcome to Codex History of Video Games. I'm Mike Coletta.
And I'm Tyler Osby.
And I'm working on my arm circles today. That's what I'm doing, is my new dance. It's arm circles, but your hands are raised.
This is how you stay in shape in your 30s. You just do arm circles.
Yeah, you do arm circles, or in elementary school.
Yeah, that's true. Many things are the same, whether you're in your 30s or at elementary school.
That's true.
Nap time? Well, love it. Snack time? Here for it.
I think both of those things get more and more exciting the older you get, too. So that's great. Well, today we're talking more on the book Jacked by David Kushner. This is about the history of Grand Theft Auto. And this script, I'm just going to say it, the script was so long that we split it into two. And because I'm going to be gone next week. So this way you get an episode while I'm out.
We're doing two at the same time.
Two at the same time. Yeah. So it'll be good that you get an episode. Also, I'm not going to change shirts. So there's no conspiracy there. We're going to stay the same. So with that, we're going to we're going to talk about chapters 13 and chapters 14 today. And I think we're just going to dive right in, right?
Let's just drop right in here. So in chapter 13, we're talking about Vice City. I think that's the name of the chapter, actually. It's just Vice City. They're talking about the inspiration behind it and the toll that it took on the team to build it. Because we're in the early 2000s, and while crunch is definitely still a thing in the video game industry, it was even more of a thing back then, potentially. But people weren't talking about it as if it were a problem. It was just kind of like, these people love what they're doing and they die doing it, and it's great. They did that on Vice City. They spent a lot of time on it. But Vice City, I think, is a game that kind of cemented Rockstar's dominance here, because like Grand Theft Auto 1 was fine. 2 was what it was. It didn't get great reviews. 3 revolutionized the industry. But Vice City was them showing that they could kind of do it again. It was building on the GTA 3 thing, but like Vice City, I think is even better than GTA 3. So it's awesome. And it's kind of crazy to think that they built this all in 10 months when it has taken them more than 10 years to build Grand Theft Auto 6.
Yeah, so that's wild.
The last time they did a Vice City, it took them 10 months. This time, it's taken them 10 years. More than 10 years, because it's been, when GTA 5 came out in 2013, so it's been 12 years. It will have been like 13 years by the time this game comes out.
Wow.
Yeah. Do you remember when Vice City came out, though? The 80s aesthetic, the soundtrack.
Dude, this is my favorite Grand Theft Auto. It always has been and always will be, I think.
Yeah.
Even though, like, 5 is like a masterpiece, we get it. Like, it's like the perfect GTA game. It's new. There's something about the tone of this game that really resonated at the time.
Yeah.
And that's what made me feel really good about it.
It's kind of a cultural experience in those days. And I think
at
that time in the early 2000s, because it's like 2002 is when this game came out. So we're looking at 2001, 2002 for development. 80s nostalgia was really big in those days. I remember all my friends in high school like trying to convince each other that they were in fact 80s babies. Like there's like a couple kids who were born in 89. They're like, yeah, I'm from the 80s. And then there's people like me who are born like early 90. And we're like, yeah, but I was in the womb in the 80s, so I'm an 80s baby too. And you're like, okay. That one was a stretch on my part. And because time is a flat circle, 80s nostalgia is still in. I don't think we ever got over 80s nostalgia.
I don't think so either. I think it's been here the whole time.
We're like, we get some 90s nostalgia in there, but there really is not much for like the early mid 2000s yet. And I don't think we're like too early for it, because again, it's like 20 years later is when the 80s nostalgia was kicking in. Less than 20 years later, because that game takes place in 1986. And
yeah, 86.
So it was like 15 years later. So if we were building a game like Vice City today, we would be building something that takes place in like 2010.
Which is really
Which is strange to feel like a nostalgia for in the way that we felt like 80s nostalgia. Like, sure, I feel generalized nostalgia for things that happened 15 years ago, but I don't feel like nostalgic for the era, really,
Yeah, no, I get that. I think it was also just like so much pop culture comes out of the 80s that it's a perfect thing to just emulate. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like if you were going to tell me like, Mike, what is the difference to you between the 2000s and the 2010s? I would have to take a long time to like sit and think about it.
Yeah.
But for the 80s, it's like, it's the 80s. They had all this like weird stuff going on, So it was great.
Yeah. Yeah. I would love to hear what people think about that and like how we sort of view history through that lens of nostalgia. Because like some of it is like, yeah, it's very clear to us what the 80s means as a person who did not partake in the 80s in any sense of the word. Like it's pretty clear to me what that is. But like I want to know what people, I guess, what does like a 20-year-old kid now think of like early 2000s or like even late 90s nostalgia of like an era that they didn't participate in, right?
I would have to think about it the same way that you and I would look at like the 70s or the 60s.
Yeah.
You know?
But
Like,
those
that's how
eras
I
seem
would
to
look
have
at
their
it.
own distinct things too.
Yeah, they do. They
So,
do.
yeah, I don't know. I guess I'm curious what fuels nostalgia these days, and because it feels like there's like distinct decades, distinct eras that feel a little bit more blurred these days, and I don't know if that's just because
For
there hasn't been
sure.
enough time to set those boundaries, or if it's because those boundaries literally are just less apparent.
Yeah. I think it needs time. I think it needs to cook. Let it cook.
But it didn't
Let
need
it
cook in the
some more.
early 2000s. It was very clear 80s nostalgia, right? Like 15 years ago. So I don't know.
Yeah.
I guess I don't really know what
Maybe
the
it's just
answer is.
because there was there like distinct. I bet you though there's still distinct fashion between the 2010s and the 2000s. We're just not noticing it.
Yeah, maybe we are old.
Maybe it wasn't as loud as
Yeah.
it was in the 80s. I'm not sure.
Or I think we might be too old to like be able to
Well,
draw
I mean,
those lines ourselves.
2000s. When I think of the 2000s musically, I would say like new metal. That's
Oh,
when
yeah.
like new metal was big. Like, we're
Yeah.
talking your Limp Bizkits,
Yeah,
we're talking your Corns, your Deftones,
yeah.
your Disturbs, like that kind of age. Kid Rock, when he was doing the "Ba With a Ba" song, remember that? That's all like that's that time. Which I know talking like this right now sounds like I'm speaking a completely different language to someone who was born in the 2000s. But hey, you know,
Yeah. I don't know.
it was a weird time. It was a weird time to be alive.
Yeah. Nostalgia is just weird. Like if we made what would a GTA game set in the early 2000s look like today? I don't know. That would be interesting. Like it's very clear when you do 80s. You're like, oh, I know what that looks like. It looks like Miami Vice. It looks
I
like
would say there would be like a new metal station, and there would be like Jinko jeans. People be wearing Jinko jeans.
Yeah.
Remember those?
Yeah.
And that's like, that's like a little too. Oh, dude, of course, the iPod.
Oh
Everyone
yeah,
had
that's
an
solid.
iPod.
A solid.
That's a solid 2000s thing.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, you're absolutely right. Anyway, we should probably get back talking about the book. Yeah, so this chapter really centers on like the build up to the launch of Vice City and that pressure cooker environment at Rockstar. They had succeeded with GTA 3, of course, but Vice City needed to be bigger. And with bigger expectations comes bigger pressure and the cost of those expectations and that bigger pressure. And so the team was working around the clock. They're putting in insane hours. Like what was 9 to 5 became 11 to 3, and not like the good way where 11 to 3 is only 4 hours. It's the 11 to 3 as 14 hours. Is that what that is? Yeah, 14 hours.
Yeah,
days.
that'd be 14 hours. Yeah.
And they probably did even more than that, like 11 a.m. to 3 a.m. Kushner talks about.
Well, no, that would be 16-hour days, dude.
Oh,
11 to 3.
dang, you're right.
Yeah.
Okay, math is hard.
Clocks. Am I right, everybody?
What?
Clocks.
Clocks. It's the 12. It really gets you. You know,
It does. You just got to realize 11 to 11 is 12 hours, and then add the 4.
Yeah,
That's the throwing it off.
who invented the timekeeping that we use today? I don't know. It doesn't make any sense. Yeah, so Kushner talks about roughly 30,000 cumulative hours were spent just play testing the game, like just testing. Like they were meticulously breaking this game apart, looking for bugs, looking for every possible way to make it fall apart. And the testers were like destroying PS2s, like throwing them out the window, blasting them with hair dryers, and like freezing them in the freezer. That seems like a made up thing that you say to be like, well, you know, the kids are gonna put these PS2s through their paces, and like, what are you worried about? That they're gonna freeze their PS2 and the game's not gonna work right and it's gonna be your fault? Like, doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, like that seems like a hardware thing, not a software thing.
Yeah,
it's like a Sony problem.
I'm not sure I directly
Rockstar
believe
problem.
that story of like, yeah, we were smashing these things up, or at least I believe that they were smashing these things up. I don't believe they were doing them for science in some way to like, we need this game to function while it's being hit with a hammer too. Like I don't believe that. But I bet it did contribute directly to the culture at Rockstar, I think, which was not very healthy at the time. They needed places to blow off steam, and I suppose destroying hardware was one way to do that. The level of destruction was crazy, but I think it highlights the stakes here because this wasn't just about releasing a fun game. It was about releasing a game that they couldn't break, that they thought would satisfy this demanding audience. Again, I don't know. It doesn't really make sense to me. I don't actually care if a game is unbreakable, and I would argue that the breakability of these games is actually what kind of gives them a lot of their charm and stuff like that. So I think that's part of what gives them that longevity. So, yeah, they had this like symbiotic but adversarial relationship with the player base in that sense, like where they really wanted players to love it, but they also like wanted players to tell them about how bad it was too, and like give them criticism about it to break the game. So I don't know. It's kind of crazy. But with all that hype came even more pressure. And Kushner describes these like random outbursts becoming commonplace at the Rockstar office. The team's on edge. A little bit of criticism to like one of the Housers could just set them off, right? And there's one story about somebody who posted in an online forum that like the trees in GTA 3 looked bad. And that was like one of the team members just like flew into a rage over this, was like, the trees don't have to look good. This is crazy. It's kind of literally losing the forest for the trees. So yeah, that's not to excuse any bad behavior that they have, but it is to set the context. Like they were under a lot of pressure. And again, that doesn't make it okay for these kinds of things to happen, but explaining things like that can help you to prevent them from happening in the future. If you can deal with those things that sort of explain it. So there was also like a lot of external interactions, to say the least, here too. Like they talk about their meeting with Burt Reynolds, who voices Avery Carrington in Vice City. And Burt Reynolds is like this huge star, especially in the 80s, like a cultural icon. And Rockstar had like watched his movies, so it was like pretty crazy that this guy was going to come in and do a voice for them. I've been watching a lot of Golden Girls with my partner recently, and they on that show they can't stop talking about how attractive Burt Reynolds is. There's that episode where funny. Sophia literally leaves the gang in jail so she can go meet Burt Reynolds. So that's the kind of hold that this man had on the culture in the 80s, because Golden Girls obviously was made in the 80s and takes place in the 80s, and like so very contemporary. They were very excited about Burt Reynolds, and I think they talk about him in more than one episode too. Like it's a kind of a recurring theme.
I love that for the Golden Girls.
Me too. Yeah.
What a great TV show.
Yeah. But he wasn't like thrilled to be working on a video game either. He kind of looked down on the medium, and he sort of treated the team with disdain. I think this was kind of typical of Hollywood stars at the time, maybe still to some extent for like older stars, where it's like, I think they get maybe a little resentful over the like, oh, you have enough money to pay for me, this big star, but you're just making stupid little video games. Clearly this is like, there's something mismatched here, and I'm not wrong. The children are wrong. So he was like kind of a jerk to them. But they got him, and they got Ray Liotta to play Tommy Vercetti, the main guy. Yeah. And so yeah, that like clash of cultures from Hollywood and the games industry was pretty cool. And they talk about how like, oh, our game actually has made more money than all of your movies combined. So it's kind of a like, which is another like stab in the throat or stab in the heart.
Yeah, it's not going to make them like you anymore. I'll tell you that much.
Yeah. So yeah, but they didn't want to upset him too much, because then that kind of loses the validation that having him brings to the project as well. So it's like, we need you to respect us, but we also need you to not hate us, because we need you for the authenticity of this thing, which was very important for Vice City, I think, to be authentic in that sense. So yeah, lots of different personalities to deal with, navigating the moral gray areas of all that stuff too, because some of those stars, I think, didn't necessarily want to be involved with that Grand Theft Auto game too, which made it kind of tough. And it's a very violent game, so they had to kind of deal with that too, which is kind of where the next chapter comes in, because we keep going on this like parallel storyline with Jack Thompson and his desire to I don't know, keep the industry in check. I don't know. He's got this like weird, like
it's
religious
really
fervor
weird
about him.
Yeah, it's really, really, really weird. That's a good way to put it. I'm going to start, because I ended up drawing the Jack Thompson straw on both my chapters that we're going to do in these next two episodes. And the guy's really hard to like. Like it's really hard to like this guy. And obviously there's probably some bias with like David Kushner just being a games journalist. And I'm trying my best, but just know if I ever compliment Jack Thompson, I don't mean it. Okay.
I would never compliment Jack Thompson,
because he's just clearly a fear-mongering kind of person. So, and I'm also going to say this. I'm going to say the same thing next episode too when we record, but this is going to be kind of a little bit of a trigger warning, parental advisory of sorts right now. I'm going to do my best to not talk about the horrific shootings that happen that are referenced in the book. Like, we're not a true crime podcast. We're not going to get into it. I'm just going to provide as little context as needed for everyone to understand what's going on. But not in this chapter, but in 16 especially, it gets really, really dark. So we're just going to kind of have to work around that when we get to it. That's next episode, though. That's an hour from now, Mike's problem. It's totally fine. Okay. So let's get into this right now. And it starts off with Jack Thompson. He's dropping his kid off at school. And he's specifically thinking about the DC sniper. Now, some of our listeners might not know of this, but in 2002, there were a series of coordinated shootings in the Washington, D.C. area. I'm not going to get into it more than that. I mean, if you want to look into it, that's what's going on. It was really scary. I remember being scared as a kid. Like, we all thought it could happen anywhere. And it's a very interesting story, but not covered by this podcast. So just know that that's what's happening at the time. And that's like the public sentiment at the time. So needless to say, Jack Thompson, of course, blames video games. And Thompson even went on the Today Show and said the sniper trained on video games. And the exact quote in the book is, quote, "The one-shot methodology is indicative of a video game." End quote. Cool. That's like his argument that it goes, right?
So citation needed? Proof?
Yeah, I mean, well, what ends up happening, and I actually wrote when I was writing the script, because I read the book and I write the script along with me reading, right? And I read the book and I was like, he doesn't have any evidence. And then boom, here's the evidence. So the next part says, the news broke that the juvenile 15-year-old shooter Lee Boyd Malvo did in fact play Halo. And they talk about how he played Shoddy Snipes, which is a game mode on there, and he would use the sniper rifle. And it goes into that some more because it was a 2-person shooting. There were 2 people involved, and Lee Boyd Malvo was one of the people, a 15-year-old boy. Now, what I want to focus on is not like the shooter and the playing video games part. What's interesting here, and what I think Kushner is trying to identify early on in this fight, is that Thompson blamed games, which he could now because the guy said he played Halo, right?
Yeah, well, and if you played Halo, then obviously that contributes to whatever bad thing you did.
Again, yeah, obviously, yeah. I mean, I'm saying this is like this is Thompson's reasoning, right?
Right.
yeah. So he's like, oh, Halo. So he has like a smoking gun in his mind. The game developers at this time never went head to head with Thompson. And we're going to see this unfold in the next episode, but this had 2 things happen. One, it didn't necessarily blow this up like argumentative Fox News national media style arguing back and forth, but it did give Jack Thompson a platform where he was the only voice being heard for a very long time, which kind of helped his side as well. So what's going on here, and we're going to get a lot of quotes from this next guy, Doug Lowenstein. He is with the Interactive Digital Software Association, and he said, quote, "I was always managing a calculus," meaning like he had a plan, but it didn't involve going directly head to head with Thompson. And he had this plan thinking it, like, I guess his mindset was it was kind of blow over. That was his mindset. But then these shootings kept happening. And so it never really blew over.
Yeah, and Jack Thompson every time these shootings are happening, Jack Thompson's coming out and being like, "It's the video games, guys. What am I saying here? And look how nobody's opposing me. It must be true."
Yeah. So, and we mentioned earlier that there was a lawsuit for Paducah that Thompson was involved in, and that was actually dismissed. And then the aforementioned Protect Children from Video Game Sex and Violence Act that actually failed, but video games were still a target for blaming violence in children. And in St. Louis, they actually successfully passed an ordinance banning the sale of violent video games to anyone under 18. Even though it was argued that this defied the First Amendment in doing so, Judge Stephen Limbaugh ruled that games did not constitute speech and therefore didn't deserve such protection. Obviously, as a podcast, we disagree, okay? And obviously, this is going to get overturned, but this is where we're at right now in 2002. So, therefore, Lowenstein's plan was to not engage Thompson directly, thinking he would only inflate the issue. And Lowenstein even said, "I knew that he wanted me to do what he wanted me to do was be in a forum where he could have me say something and then slap a lawsuit." Because that's what Jack Thompson does. He slaps lawsuits on things He's looking for a reason. And he's going to get really desperate too, and we're going to talk about that in a bit. He's going to do something really ridiculous to get a lawsuit going, and it's just as crazy as you think. So that is smart of Lowenstein, by the way, because that's exactly what Jack Thompson does. However, it did make it so, as I said before, Thompson essentially ranted unopposed on television and in the news that video games cause violence, and then this is where he kind of sets his sights on Grand Theft Auto and saying, this is what I want to go for. And it didn't help that enemy of the podcast, Joseph Lieberman, that's what I'm going to say. He's the enemy of the podcast now.
Not friend of the podcast. Like
not
Shigeru
friend
Miyamoto.
of the podcast. Yeah, not friend. Went straight for GTA Vice City, along with David Walsh, the head of the National Institute on Media and the Family. They said that kids are playing these games and parents have no idea what's going on. Then, to add insult and injury to Thompson, the game was not only violent and full of sex, but it was also based in Jack Thompson's hometown of Miami.
Dang.
So now he's even more fired up about it.
And he took that personally.
He took it personally. I didn't even think about that until they mentioned it just now in the book, that it was in Miami, and that's where Jack Thompson lives. So now, this is that ridiculous thing I was talking about, because we all know Jack Thompson. That man loves a lawsuit. Right? Mm-hmm. He loves it.
Sure
and
does.
He had a hunch. So his hunch was he's going to give his son, this is his child, $60 to go into Best Buy and purchase Grand Theft Auto. And he wants to see if the employee sells it to his kid without Thompson there while he videotapes it. And of course they do, because in Florida, there was no law against doing that. So of course they sold him the game, right?
Yeah.
That's just the way it is. That's just the way it worked. Happened many times before. Oh, go ahead.
Is this an attempt? I mean, I know it's kind of like a ridiculous publicity stunt, but is the idea here that people are saying, oh, stores actually don't do this. They don't sell games to kids. And he's going, actually, they do, and I can prove it. Because, like, what is he proving here? That a store will sell something to a person who wants it? Like, that's not
So with Grand Theft Auto, he's not focusing on violence right now. He's focusing on the sexual content of Grand Theft Auto with prostitutes and claiming they're selling sexual content to minors.
Gotcha. So he's saying this is illegal.
That's specifically what he's going to. He's like, okay, well, if I can't get them for violence, I can get them for sex. I'm going to go and show them that they're selling sexual content to minors by selling them a copy of Grand Theft Auto Vice City.
Okay, right. And that is presumably illegal at this point in time, right?
Yes. You're selling, he's trying to say, like, essentially you're selling pornography to a minor, which is illegal.
Yes.
So he's trying to make that connection. He's trying to say this game is the same as pornography and you're selling it to my child. So we're going to pause that right there for a second. Just going to hold that up because that's what the book does. And we're going to jump into something a little more fun. One of my favorite activities that happens at Grand Theft Auto and Rockstar Games, and that's a cheese ball eating contest.
Yeah!
Who doesn't love one? We all love a cheese ball eating contest. So Grand Theft Auto Vice City had moved 1.4 million copies in its first 2 days, which is pretty nuts.
Yeah, wow.
This made it the fastest selling video game at the time ever. Grand Theft Auto 3 was also still selling already sold over 8 million copies and generated over $400 million in its first year.
Jeez.
So GTA Vice City was huge. Unlike GTA 3, it was highly reviewed as well. And it was everywhere. So the book goes into this in more detail, but the Rockstar guys were actually starting to get treated like rock stars, which is funny because remember when we came up with their name, they did that as like an ironic joke that the rock star is dead. And now they're being treated like that by all these companies. Like Def Jam Records reaches out and collabs with them, which is who they kind of base their whole brand off of. So it's pretty big. Take-Two's revenue then hit over $1 billion, which is pretty nuts. And the stock options were coming in, so people were now buying houses there. So what's funny, though, is with all this financial success, things were not going great at the Rockstar offices. Guys like Pope and Fernandez, who had been there since the beginning, and like they felt like the whole family dynamic was gone. So, and like you said, Tyler, Sam Hauser was just like smashing his phone in his office when someone told him something he didn't like. That swag that they got, the rings and the jackets, were like actually now based on rank, and the highest rank had a cashmere sweater with the Rockstar logo. So they were like ranking employees now by what kind of swag you got, which made everything feel weird.
This thing that used to be like bring everybody together, be like, we're all part of the same Rockstar family, which I hate when corporations call themselves family, but like, we're all part of the same Rockstar family. It's like, it has now been used to stratify the employees at Rockstar of like, well, there's like different tiers of employees. So like, you know, not everybody's the same, which is not, it used to be, they were all the same.
There are other big companies I know that do that now too, that have like levels of employees, and it just causes like weird inter-class warfare among employees at your own company. It seems really stupid. I can think of one, but I'm not going to say it. Okay. I don't want to get in trouble. All right. So let me look where I was here. Okay. So Rockstar also wanted to keep its enigmatic presence in the industry. So when CTO Foreman got asked to do a talk at a game development panel, this is a very common thing that happens, right? Mm-hmm. You work for a video game company. They ask you to come to a panel. You say yes. You talk about your business, yada, yada, yada. Terry Donovan said, no, we don't do that, was his exact quote. We don't do that. So, and Foreman knew that Rockstar didn't want any secrets getting out, anything beyond their control. So no one did any talks. But what's funny is Foreman even mentions that there were no secrets, but the only secret to their great games was because they worked super hard and were super passionate about what they did.
Some like secret tech that like nobody can know about, or like some secret method of like gathering things. It was just like, no, they just cared a lot. They went to Miami. They learned everything they needed to know. Like they just are good. That's the secret. Make good game.
Yep. And that whole idea of Rockstar having a secret or a mystery, that's what built Rockstar's success. That's the idea that they wanted to keep. That was their brand, was that there's this extra special something that makes them super special, when in reality it's the same thing that makes every company special. But the whole point is we don't talk about it because it's like you never meet your heroes, right? Because then you find out they're just a real person like you and me. So you never tell anyone about Rockstar.
The CTO is going to go say, we use renderware, and like the world is going to be destroyed.
Yeah. It's just
suddenly
like
Rockstar's secret is out.
Yeah, it's so funny to me because like the whole secret is that they just try their best, but they don't want to tell anyone that because they're Rockstar and they have to look amazing.
And CTO, like Chief Technology Officer, like beyond. So like their secret is that they just make good games, but like there's no illusion of any sort of technical secret. Like they didn't pull anything off technically impressive in any of these games. I don't think. I mean, large open world, I guess, is kind of impressive at the time, but they weren't the only ones doing it. So it's like, what is the chief technology officer going to say that like gives the secret away? It's like, you still got to make a good game, whether or not you know how the tech works. So like, I imagine he was going to go give a talk on like, you know, how we decide what kind of tech to use. Or I don't know, like something that like is helpful for everybody in the industry to know. I don't know.
Yeah, and what's funny is they even mentioned, I think, in the chapters before that for Vice City, they used like almost all the same engine and stuff that they used in GTA 3. They were just trying to like optimize it. And was enough to make it seem a lot more new. And then they got rid of all the grays and they used like more color. Like they wanted to make the world colorful and lavish and like 80s, right? And so he could have just talked about that. Like that's not a secret to anybody. That's just like, oh yeah.
You play the game, you see what they did.
Yeah, exactly. So I don't know, but that's one thing that makes Rockstar look weird this time. Here's the other thing that makes Rockstar look really weird. You ready? I had no idea this happened, but Rockstar fought against their critics. So if you wrote a bad review about a Rockstar game or the company, you were banned access. They even banned running ads in your publication. So if you wrote poorly about the Rockstar or GTA and you are a video game magazine that puts ads for video games in your magazine, well, guess what? Rockstar will not buy any ads for you anymore. And they pay top dollar for ads. So you're actually hurting your financial line by not reviewing their games well, which is just really gross to me. So there is Dan Houser's assistant, Gillian Telling, said in the book, quote, "They were crazy about the media in general. They'd get a 9 out of 10 score and call them up and threaten to pull ads forever," end quote.
Yeah.
Which is just a 9 out of 10, and you're going to threaten to pull ads because you didn't get a 10 out of 10. That's just...
Yeah. Well, and it's really, like, what do you think these are? I mean, I guess I know what they think these are. They think that these video game publications are ads for their game, right? Where it's like, whether we buy an ad or we send you a copy to review, these are all ads, and that's how they see it. And like, I understand why you would think about it that way. It is strange to like sort of go into that relationship saying like, hey, you give us a good review, like when ostensibly a review is objective and is not influenced by those kinds of things. So using it as, I understand the thought of like, we use this as an extension of our how we think about ads, but to go to them and say, you have to do this, is like, but that's not how it works. You know, that's not what a review is. And that's a big problem in the industry. I think it's still a problem today, but it was a huge problem in the 2000s, because this is where people got their like, whether or not they were going to buy a game, they got it from reading a magazine. And if the magazine gave a game a bad review, that would be bad. But they also have, again, the magazines have that like weird symbiotic relationship with these publishers, because they also want to receive copies of the game in advance. Like, they can buy a copy of the game themselves, that's fine, but like, they want advance copies so they can get the review out quickly. And so it's like this weird like adversarial relationship where we help each other to a certain point, and the lines get very blurry and very strange.
Go ahead and hit that tangent button, Tyler. I got a thing. You ready? Okay, so because we're almost going to close out the episode today, at least this history part. But so when I used to work in indie game marketing, albeit poorly, I was not good at it. Okay, I just want to put that on the record. But thank you. But the one thing that everyone wanted was reviews. They didn't necessarily want like you to like blurb press release. They wanted you to actually review the game. And they were so important that we actually offered a mock review service where like someone would review your game at our company. We would never publish it. It's not a fake review. It's not real. No one's going to see it. It's only so we could critique your game and show you what we thought would get attacked in a review, so they could fix the game, like make the game better.
It's
right?
like a mock debate for a political candidate, where it's like, this is a good idea, so you know what might be thrown your way. Yeah.
Dude, one of the funniest things that ever happened to me, like the funniest interactions I had, is I emailed because I would send a lot of emails trying to get customers, right? Like, it was kind of a sales job, but like I would send emails and I told them about mock reviews, and this one guy got back thinking that we were making fake reviews and somehow getting them on websites that were real. And I'm like, no. Like, he told me to kick rocks. Like, he thought I was like being serious. And I was like, just so you know, like, a mock review is like something that only you see. I explained it to him. He's like, oh, okay. And then he just like never emailed me again.
He was embarrassed. Yeah, you're like, no, we're not trying to deceive anybody. We're trying to help you. This is what people might say about your game, so maybe you want to know that.
Exactly. I just think it's so funny. So reviews are still like a huge deal. Even in the age of like the internet, you know, like Metacritic, like your Metacritic score is a big deal.
Yeah, the meta review is an even bigger deal. Like, they don't even care about individual reviews at this point. It's just like, what is your Metacritic score? And anything below 85 is a garbage game. It's like,
which is nuts because there's so many good games out there that are under an 85. That's crazy.
I have lots of problems with review score inflation in the industry.
Yeah, we talk about that. Yeah, it's pretty wild. So anyway, that was the end of my tangent. I just sometimes like to mention that when I briefly did stuff in games, very very briefly and very lightly. So I want to. The chapter ends here with both Pope and Fernandez ready to unwind, right? Because Vice City's out. So they're actually at a restaurant celebrating the end of Vice City development. Like, they're saying, hey, we did it, thinking they're about to get a huge vacation. And then Sam calls them and says, let's talk about San Andreas. So now we're seeing them go from GTA 3 to GTA Vice City, no break again, to GTA San Andreas. And naturally, this is going to cause problems in Rockstar. And that's what we're going to get into more in the next episode.
Yeah, they didn't even.
So.
They were like, "We'll have a party celebrating Vice City," and they never did because they just like went straight into making San Andreas like literally the next day.
Just work
Yeah.
all the time. That's what they did. So we love the games, but man, it's kind of depressing when you hear it on that lens, you know. So next chapter we'll get into. Next episode we'll get into chapters 15 and 16 though. But Tyler, what you been playing?
This week, mostly just Bravely Default Flying Fairy, the remake on Switch 2. That's kind of it, honestly. I have a few hours into it. I'm like 6 or 7 hours in, I think, at this point. Having a good time. It's an old school Final Fantasy. I mean, it's just Bravely Default. It's the same game that came out 12 years ago or whatever, but it's very fun, and I'm having a good time with it. I'm considering starting up some GTA games because of reading all these. I'm like, I never finished GTA 3, Vice City, or San Andreas. I think the only GTA I've ever finished is 5. Because I got stuck on a really frustrating mission in 4, and the checkpoint system in that game is not forgiving.
Yeah, see, I've beat every single one except for 4. Because 4, and I'm going to say this, and it's going to sound mean, I got kind of bored.
Dang.
Like, yeah, I know.
Lots of people really like the story.
I know, and I think the story is compelling, but I got really tired of going out on dates and stuff. I don't know. That just kind of wore me down. It felt like it was trying to do some life sim stuff, which in some cases isn't bad, but it just didn't really grip me. Maybe it was at the time. I don't know. I should try it again.
Try again. Yeah. I'm
open to trying it again.
I'm thinking about it. So. I'm thinking about playing on PC. I think I might have an easier time if I play mouse and keyboard on some of those harder missions too. So.
Yeah, well, your aim's just all pro aim.
Yeah, that's right. I need a mouse keyboard. None of this auto aim stuff on the console. But yeah, there was like a mission I got stuck on that was like 2 hours long, and I swear the hard part is like an hour and a half in. And so every time you start over, you got to do it again. It was like, those numbers might be a little bit off. This was, 15 years ago, I really played this game, but that's what it felt like. It was like, oh my gosh, how much do I have to redo just to get to the part where I'm going to die anyway?
That just feels so bad when it happens too. Yeah. It feels so bad.
Yeah. But that's kind of all I've been playing. What have you been playing?
Oh, did I mention I beat Doom the Dark Ages? I don't know if I mentioned that last week. I can't remember. Time doesn't make any sense to me anymore. I think I beat it after last week's episode.
Yeah. Well, we had an episode last week, right?
We didn't. Yeah, that's right. So I definitely beat Doom the Dark Ages. Yeah, I beat Doom the Dark Ages. It was really fun. I would describe it as if Michael Bay had the Doom franchise, though, because it was very over the top, and I think it fit. Giant mechs, a demon dragon that kills demons for you that you ride. It's all pretty cool stuff. The story is how I'll put it.
It's Doom. I mean,
yeah, exactly. But that's the problem is like, so they recognize that in the first Doom 2016 of the new Dooms, they like recognize that the story is like unimportant, right? And that's the whole joke. But then in Doom Eternal, they kind of like towed the line, and it kind of made sense, and it was kind of fine. In Doom the Dark Ages, it feels like everything is happening around you and you're not involved in the plot at all, even though you're the Doom Slayer. It's really weird. It's this weird feeling where I was like, okay, that's great. I just saw a cutscene in hell, and I guess we're just doing like an omniscient narrator situation because the Doom guy is nowhere near here. I don't know what's going on. It's like, it felt like Game of Thrones. It felt like it was cutting between like each faction. And I'm like, this is Doom. Man, I just want to fight some demons with my cool shield. Now, everything about the game else, though, like gameplay-wise, stellar. Mood, music, it was fantastic. It's what I wanted. But yeah, the story, not quite it. Not much to write home about.
So Dark Ages, does it take place in the past? Is this a prequel or?
Yes, it's a prequel. So in the Doom timeline, because they are all related, but there's just like parallel universes and stuff, right? So this is after Doom 64, I think, when you become like the Doom Slayer, no longer just Doom guy, but the Doom Slayer, where you're like a demigod essentially. Okay. And then this is you like building up your legend kinda, but everyone's afraid of you and terrified of you at the time anyway. And you're really powerful and you can't die. And it's really, there's a lot going on. But you save a princess at one point. It was just kind of weird. I was like, what is this? Like, why are we doing Mario with Doom guy? But yeah, I enjoyed the game. Don't get me wrong. The story was strange to me. So didn't fit the mood. But then I'm also playing Stardew Valley. I'm going for perfection. I want to hit the perfection. This is a painful road that I've started, but I will finish it at some point. Just maybe within 3 or 4 years when I go back and forth to it.
I believe.
Thank you. Thank you. If you have any comments about what we spoke about today or just have any thoughts, questions, concerns, you can go ahead and send us an email at codexhistorypodcast@gmail.com. You can go ahead and go to our website, codespodcast.net. That has all our links there, including a link to the Discord that never expires. And then when you join, you got to check the little box agreeing that you follow the rules, and then everything opens up to you and you can see everything. So with that, Tyler, do you want to say bye to everybody?
I will say goodbye to everybody. Goodbye, everybody.